Hello, welcome back. Right, I've not done an unboxing video for ages, really. Probably because I haven't had anything to unbox. Simple as that. I'm still working my way through a load of the sort of games and stuff that I bought months back, really. And after I went on my last sort of splurge just after Christmas of buying N64s, GameCubes, SNES Minis, 2 Spectrums, God knows how many Spectrum tapes, Commodore 64, kind of space became an issue, and I said, right, that's it, blah blah blah, I'm not going to do any more. And I did really well until last week, when an offer came up that was too good to refuse, really. And I thought, if I don't go for it, I'm probably never ever going to get it, basically. I've said before about space being an issue in relation to actual hardware. Now, I will get onto that in a second. But this is courtesy of Mark Payne. Mark fixes stuff. Link to his channel down below. He's a cool guy. He's the guy who gave me the Commodore 64. Also the little knockoff Nintendo Entertainment System, etc. Which is becoming really useful for some comparison videos, etc. So, I have already opened this. I know what's in the box, obviously, because I bought it. But I have already opened this and had a look. It was wrapped up really well. So an unboxing video of it, the way it was packaged, the way Mark secured everything, it would have taken me about 1.5 years to do, because it really was well taped up and secured. So I'm gonna, without further ado, we're gonna go into this. It's arrived really promptly today. Let's just get rid of the bubble wrap. I've got about 4 tons of bubble wrap now, as well as all the other stuff that I've saved. I love this stuff. Who doesn't love popping bubble wrap? No one doesn't love popping bubble wrap. It's great stuff. My kids will like that. I say they're kids. They're not kids anymore, really. But yeah. So anyway, without further ado, Mark has given me an Amstrad CPC 464. Now, I'm really happy with this addition to the collection, because it means now that I've got the 3 main players, not necessarily the best, but the 3 most popular computers that were in the sort of UK home market back in the 80s, at the height of gaming's popularity, if you like. Back then it was, you know, everyone knew someone who either had one or the other. Some lucky sods had both, and some even luckier sods, particularly the rich ones, had things like the BBC Micro. Now, there were, of course, other machines from the era, like the Dragon 32, the Oryx, etc., which were sort of, I don't know, particularly by me, laughed at a bit back then. But nowadays, like, really sort of curious about them. But again, space becomes an issue. Now, obviously, you may be aware that back in the day it came with the power supply built into the monitor. Now, I don't have the monitor. I have a separate PSU and power plug that Mark has sent me. I'll power it on just to sort of show you in a separate part of the video. But I think it looks really nice. Really nice. And I will dig out there's the Commodore 64, and excuse me, you see what I mean about space being an issue. There's one of the 4 Spectrums. Now, I haven't bought these just to, you know, sit in a shelf or anything and gather dust. I bought these to actually use them. I really do like using these old computers. And my purpose, my thinking behind getting the Amstrad was that when I've been doing Commodore 64 videos and Spectrum comparison videos, I thought it would be really great to be able to do the 3 main sort of versions. So hence wanting to get an Amstrad. Now, I know other channels have been doing that kind of comparison video for far longer and with more systems. Yeah, I can't do anything about that. These are the only sort of 3 that I have. And like I say, they do it much better than I ever will. But yeah, I'm really, really happy that I've got all 3 together, because sometimes just being Spectrum centric can be a bit, I wouldn't say boring, but it can become a bit of a bind at times. Especially when you're looking for something to play, and either my own sort of gameplay ineptitude makes the videos incredibly boring. But it's nice, I think, with comparison videos, the ones that I've done, The Great Escape Rambo and Buggy Boy, have been really quite well received, and they've generated a lot of discussion. So, you know, adding another machine to the mix, I think, could make for some even more interesting videos. Now, like I said, space is an issue, particularly if you look at, right, are you going to buy, where do you stop? I already mentioned, like, the Dragon 30, that's a big old beast, the Dragon 32 by the look of things. The Auric is like Spectrum sized and whatnot, but then you've got to think about all the leads and power cables, etc. Oh, speaking of which, I forgot to mention that I ordered this from the Retro Computer, it's upside down, Retro Computer Shack. It's a it's a thingamy to whatever to SCART, that you can plug into the back of the SCART port in the back of your telly, so that you can use the Amstrad. Now, I have questions, of course I do. I know almost as much about this as I know about the Commodore 64, which is next to nothing really. So rather than go online and sort of hunt things down, etc., etc., I've watched videos and stuff before in the past, particularly when I knew this was coming. But yeah, I know very, very little about this, and I'm going to look to you as a way of generating discussion to tell me what its strengths, what its weaknesses are. And also, as I am primarily, well, 100% games really, I have no interest in programming or anything really. What games there are to try, what are considered classic games for the Amstrad CPC 464, what are considered to be the worst games. Now I know one of them is Bridget, and I happen to have 2 copies of that now, because in this bundle of tapes is Bridget. I know that because I've already opened them and just wrapped them back up just to keep them safe so they don't fall off the desk or anything. And I've also got 2 copies of it and some more games that have cropped up in specky collections that I've managed to get in the past. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to power the CPC up, play a game on it, and yeah, see, just generate discussion. Now please, please, please share your thoughts and memories on this. Now I've been having quite a good discussion with a subscriber, Christopher Coey, if I've pronounced your second name right, about the subjects that I've raised, particularly in relation to space. Now I know lots of people have retro collections to die for, and they've got the room and the space to put it in. I mean, David Birdsall's flipping man cave's got his own bloody postcode. It's massive, the stuff he can fit in there. Some others of us are squashed into the tiniest corners of their living rooms, and really space is at a premium, which is why, as I've mentioned in other videos, I've started to use MP3 files for the Spectrum, and I've got an SD to IEC arriving soon for the Commodore 64, because I don't have the room to build up sort of massive collections for these 2 machines as well. Now if there's something similar to that machine for the Amstrad, or if you can load MP3 files into it as well, please let me know, because like I say, I'm clueless about this machine, and I think sometimes that's a really good way to be, because it means you can come to it with fresh eyes, etc. Now the discussion we were sort of having was about space and emulation, and I'm not one of these anti-emulation snobs at all, and that everything must be played on the original hardware. It's fine if you've got the space, but that's the big drawback with original hardware. I mean, you get the feel of the keys and the clacking noise that they make and the sort of tape loading sounds, etc. Yeah, it's great, but at times, you know, when we're up against things that are starting to degrade, like tapes and discs, then these digital solutions, these digital solutions that are offered are really, really great. You know, they're a godsend for those who are space starved. And you know, with emulation as well, it means you don't have to worry about having to repair the bloody things or send them off to someone who knows how to do it. So yeah, that's where we are at the moment. I'm going to plug the CPC in. I'm going to load up and play a quick game. The game is going to be the Amstrad version of Target Renegade. It's not going to be a review. That will follow, because what I plan to do is to do all three versions together. I've got in a comparison video, so that will be the first three-way comparison video that I do. It will be Target Renegade. Now, please don't tell me anything about each version, what one's best or what one's worst, because the only ones I have experience of... Is there a poltergeist in here? No? You're just chucking things around, are you?
I am, yeah.
Right,
sorry.
okay.
Sorry, dear.
You will be.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, where was I? Where was I? What was I talking about? Oh yeah, it's going to be Target. So I'd like to find out. I do have experience of the Amstrad version. Do I? Or is it the original Renegade? I'm not too sure. My mate David had an Amstrad, and he lived down in Kent, which is where we used to go on our holidays. So I'd only ever see him like during school holiday times, and play Bubble Bobble, Renegade, Barbarian, Grisor, which I thought was fantastic on the Amstrad. But I'd like to find out myself about each particular version, because I think that's half the fun of it. Now, the good thing as well is that I'm going to be discovering new games that are classic on the Amstrad and crap on the other systems, and vice versa, and finding out its strengths, weaknesses and stuff. I'm really, really looking forward to that. So anyway, those are a couple of questions for you. So let's get into the thing just to see that it works. And if it does, because I've already checked it out, so I've already took it out of the box, like I said. And see what it's like. Okay, see you in a sec. Hello, welcome back. Right, here we are on the sort of boot screen doodah, whatever you call it, thingamy, for the CPC 464. I think it looks really good on my TV through that SCART lead thingamy that I mentioned before. And again, that's from Retro Computer Shack, and I will put a link in the description box below. That's the same place I got the one from my Spectrum from. It gives a much better picture than just going through like an RF lead, etc. Right, each different machine has its own way of getting into things. The Spectrum, the rubber key one, you'll all remember, you know, Spectrum aficionados. Press J for the load command, symbol shift and P twice for the dash or dot, whatever it is you call it, and then enter the or on the 128K models, if you wanted to play the game in 128K mode, you went for the tape loader menu option on the menu. On the Amstrad, one of the shortcuts to it is through the green control key to the right hand side of the spacebar, and pressing that alongside the small blue enter key next to the numeric pad gives you a run command. So as it says on the tin, press play on the tape, then any key. So I've pressed play, and I don't know if you can hear that. It should hopefully tell me that it's searching for something and then finding something very shortly. Talk amongst yourselves while it's doing this. But as I said before, I'm keen to sort of... right, there we go. Load in Target Renegade Block 1. I'm really keen to find out from yourselves the best examples and the worst of Amstrad games and software, because, you know, I've said already, I know absolutely nothing about the machine. Amstrad aficionados, please jump in with anything, particularly the other machines, the successors to the 464, the 664 and 6128. Again, I've watched videos of them on YouTube, but it would be nice to hear from people that actually own them, what their sort of thoughts, memories and everything are. Now, I've forgotten what I was going to say. Yeah, is the Amstrad a machine you're particularly interested in, or do you have a bias towards one and not the other? Now, way back in the day, I've sort of touched on this in the past before on videos. You were either one or the other. It's very rare to find someone that had like both systems. If you were Spectrum, you were anti-Commodore. If you were Commodore, you were anti-Spectrum. And the Amstrad was kind of sort of stuck in the middle of all that. And there were other machines as well, but none of them were as popular as these three. Now here's the loading screen for Target Renegade coming up. But now as an adult I can see the benefit of each machine, and I'm happy to have each particular one in my collection, because as I said in the intro, it makes for a far more interesting range of options for me, if you like. I can now do things, if I can't think of anything to do on the Spectrum, I can switch to another machine. I primarily will be staying Spectrum oriented and using the C64 and the Amstrad mostly as comparisons for that. Anyway, there we go. Here comes the loading screen for Target Renegade. That is a Hit Squad re-release. It's not the original, although on the Spectrum it is the original version that I've got my original tape still. Whether or not that works still, we'll see. Anyway, see you at the gameplay bit, which is where I play the game, obviously. Hello, welcome back. Right, here we are. We're at the title screen for, sorry, the menu screen for the Amstrad version of Target Renegade, released in 1987 by Imagine. Now, the Spectrum version is classic. Like I said, I'm not sure if it's this or the original Renegade that I know on the Amstrad through my mate. Now, one of the things I forgot to say or do is give you a quick tour around the machine. And one thing is that there's a volume button on the right side for an internal speaker. Now the sound at the moment is coming through the TV, but if I don't know if you can hear that. That's the internal speaker, which is, you know, sort of a bit tinny. I'm not sure if that's the correct sound, but I've got the TV sound turned down there, and that's just the machine's own speaker going. But I prefer the sound out of the TV. I think it sounds a bit clearer, but Amstrad aficionados, what's your preference? Right, I'm just going to define my keys on this. Go into it, like I say, it's not going to be a review. This is just to look and see how things are. P, A, Q, and we'll do space. We're not going to play it two-player, so just... Okay, we'll have H for hold. Right, I'm going to turn that down. The familiar Renegade theme, it seems to mirror the Spectrum one. Right, so a one-player game of Target Renegade. Now you can see the screen is a little small on this TV. I'm presuming, please correct me if I'm wrong here, that it's mirroring what the size of the original monitors that came supplied with the machine were on original purchase when you first got them. But you know, it's perfectly workable and fine for me. I don't mind it. It's nice and colourful compared to, you know, Spectrum games, which always were, you know, largely but not exclusively monochromatic, especially in the early days, although there were later, as we all know, and even some modern ones are incredibly colourful because of some coding wizardry that goes on. And Commodore seem to be, I think the consensus is they have a tendency to be a bit blockier and slightly more washed out, whereas the Spectrum seems detailed. This game, this particular game, I'm not saying this is standard across the format, nice and colourful, but the graphics do look a little chunky compared to what I remember of the Spectrum version of this particular game. And like I said, I've not played the C64 version, so I can't comment on that. Now, obviously, right, okay. It's nice, responsive. It's got a real keyboard, obviously, as opposed to what I sort of grew up with, which was the rubber key Spectrum, which was always a bit of a joke to fans of other computers as a kid, but now is like an iconic piece of classic 80s British design. And rest in peace Rick Dickinson, who designed many Sinclair products. But this, yeah, it feels really, really nice. Now, I like to play with keys mostly anyway, and this does feel really responsive. Now, Mark's done a lot of stuff to this. He's tarted it up a little bit, you know, cleaned a few things, and just made sure everything was working properly, and given me some hints and tips how to sort of, if I encountered any problems, how best to get around them. And so, like I said, I'm really, really happy to have the Amstrad in my collection. Now, the other thing as well, you may remember when I put the Spectrum and the Commodore 64 side by side, when I first got the 64, I made comment on the fact that the +2 tape recorder, or data recorder as it's endorsed on the actual machine, doesn't have a which way have I got to go? Doesn't have a tape counter, whereas this one it does. And for compilations and people's own compilations, etc., that's obviously a massive boost, you know, being able to find out exactly where on a tape a game is, rather than pure guesswork, which it is on the +2 games, Spectrum games on the +2. Right, like I say, really grateful to Mark for this. I really appreciate it. I'm really happy that it's with me, that I can do more comparisons, etc. I should really have got out of the way of him rather than rabbiting, etc. But yeah, I'm really happy. It was easy enough to set up and get going. Please, your thoughts on the machine. Thanks ever so much for watching. If you like the video, please let me know. If you wish to subscribe, please do so. But if you do subscribe, as I always say, please join in the conversation, particularly around this machine, because I think it's really nice. Take care. Goodbye.